Ashley, Sidhu, we are live, Crazy Damn Canadians, and we have been trying to get you on this podcast for a long time. And so I'm so happy you finally agreed. Thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, episode 32. We've been doing this for just over a year now. And you are a very inspiring person to a lot of people. We've known each other from years ago when we connected on a videography project. And that videography project was talking about you as a login truck driver in Canada being in a male-dominated industry and your experiences in that industry. How did you get involved in that industry?
I guess it started when I was a kid. My dad has always been an owner-operator with trucks. Like, he went from highway trucks hauling fish to Prince Rupert to logging to selling out logging, you go back to highway and kind of back and forth. And as a teenager, I'd work in the yard a little bit with my dad, and I remember one time I was actually late for work because I was babysitting my brother's kids, and I came in late to work, and my dad was mad that I was late, and I called him, I told him I was going to be late, and it wasn't acceptable, and he ended up making me stack 2x4s, and they were like all nicely in a pile, and he made me move them from this pile to this pile, and I was choked as a sassy teenage girl, you know what I mean? And I ended up quitting that day after I just got brand new work boots because I was so mad. But it was a really good lesson actually, because my jobs after that, there was no way I was any more than a half an hour early every single time I'd go to work. So I started as a young kid and working alongside my dad, and actually even younger than a teenager, jumping in the truck with him and going down the highways, and I don't know if it's legal or not, but I'd sit on his lap and drive.
And we're just looking at a picture of you and your two brothers when you were young kids, and this must have been one of your dad's trucks or your uncle's truck?
Yep, my dad's.
Yeah, because they have, that's awesome, they have the company Mala Truckin', right?
Yeah.
But there's two different companies. Your dad has a company and your uncle has a company?
Yeah, so my dad is Mala Trucking and then my uncle is Mala Transport.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So your uncle would be on highways and logging roads then?
Yeah, he actually, so he started with the lumber and then he got into logging too, and he's pretty full-fledged into logging now. He has a couple lumber trucks, but he's gone the logging route too.
And when did you first get behind the wheel?
Oh,
I mean, we don't want to get your dad's company in trouble or anything.
6 years old. I'm just kidding. 6 years old. No, it was about 5 years ago now. Or this is my fourth year with my full license. So I would have started training the year before that. So 5.
Yeah, and that's your class 1.
Yeah, that's my class 1. Getting my class 1, and I quit my job as a restaurant manager, and
at the Twisted Cork.
Yeah, at the Twisted Cork.
I remember that.
And I went to India for a month, and I came back, and my dad said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know. What am I going to do?" And he told me to go get my class 1, so I did. And it was originally just a fallback plan, because it's a pretty well-paying job for that you can get into. So that was it. And then I fell into it, and I don't per se drive full time now, but I'm super into the industry, and I guess trying to be a role model for other, in particular, young women and young men coming into industries like this, and like kind of vouching for it, because I think the trucking and transportation industry is it flies under the radar, and maybe sometimes it doesn't have the best kind of rep around, but it's actually like the people out there, and you see these people on the roads and you just see a truck going by, but little do you know this person, when I get behind of a wheel, I'm like so passionate about my truck. It has to be the shiniest one out there, and if it's not, I'm kind of embarrassed. And there's so many people out there that are like that aren't just, they're not just steering wheel holders, they're really into the industry and passionate about trucks and whatnot too.
And when we collaborated on a video a few years back, I believe it was 3 years ago, what was great about that video wasn't so much the reach, and it reached over 50,000 people just on Facebook alone, but it was the engagement factor, because you had a lot of, especially young female demographic, that were getting tagged in that video post with them getting tagged, and then a link to a heavy duty mechanic or carpentry, and saying you should go for this, we're talking about this, you should pursue that program. And to me that was so motivational, because I knew that your video, by others learning your story, it was inspiring them to follow their own path that might be in a male-dominated industry or some kind of profession that didn't have a lot of females in that career sector.
Yeah.
And to me that was very rewarding, and you must see that all the time, just in general day-to-day conversations.
Absolutely, yeah. And even with, there's also men out there that are intimidated to get into logging, but in all honesty, female or male, if I can do it, you can do it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, funny, so you touch on that point, but so my role now within the company is more leading, to be in a leadership role where I'm trying to attract more people into the industry. So myself,
So HR work, or?
Yes, well, my title at Mala is now HR manager, but my brother, myself, and my dad just started another business, and it's called Spire Industries, and we are like a service and repair shop for that industry. So in turn, I hire for that industry, so I look for heavy-duty mechanics and welders and whatnot, and so I'm always reaching out to find if there's any females that are like interested in coming in, because we'd love to give them the opportunity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool where things are turning and changing, and the different roles, and so much stuff that I learn every day, right?
Yeah, I feel like your entire family is a bunch of serial entrepreneurs, just one idea after the other. And when you went to India, you were there for a month. That is did you go to your dad's hometown, your uncle's hometown, and that is the Mala?
Yeah.
So
I can't really say it with the accent, but it's like Mala Kala or something like that.
So that's where the company name comes from.
That's where the company name comes from, and I actually went to the exact house my dad was born in. Such a culture shock. Dirt floors, just some cement up on a like 2-bedroom, little curtains across for the doors to enter and whatnot.
Really grounded, just being able to see that for yourself. And that's where
cool.
you have a lot of people that came to Prince George or Canada in general, especially during the 50s, 60s, 70s, post-Second World War, that really came from nothing. And you notice that there's a sense and a heightened level of gratitude with these individuals. And you don't have to come from nothing to realize how grateful you should be in life. I feel that I always encourage people to travel, because like you did when you went to India, or if you travel around to some different countries, especially third world countries, and you see individuals that literally have nothing, sometimes they could be the happiest people ever. And when you get back to Prince George, you're not complaining about anything. You're like, no, we have it pretty good here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I think it's the realizing what you have and being happy within, and not trying to find outsource happiness. And I think like lots of people look at, well, especially my dad, and think like, oh, and my brother must be nice, but like I can't even explain to you. I've watched my brother work like 24 hours consecutively in a row, and red eyes, and like I've gone out to service calls with him trying to get a truck running out in the bush, and like, you know, I'm like, let's pull over and take a nap, and his eyes are red, and I'm just like, I've taken a couple naps because I was like, okay, what help am I going to be at this point? But yeah, I've watched my dad, and they're the two hardest working people I know, and I've watched them grind it out and get to where we are. And if I look back, like now where we are now and to where we've come from, like even if I go back to my dad where he's come from, you know what I mean? It's like he's self-made.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's cool that he's kind of, in a sense, paving the road for my brother and myself, and kind of showed us the way of entrepreneurship, I guess.
Yeah. And the work ethic apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? Because those values are instilled in yourself, and I could tell you're a person who wants to work hard every day, right?
Yeah.
You like getting things done. You love productivity. And I also liked how you touched that there's a lot of camaraderie within the industry, but probably a lot of burnout as well. And I actually just finished this audiobook from Chris Hadfield, who we need to get on the podcast. He is a famous Canadian astronaut. He did 3 missions to space, and his audiobook is absolutely phenomenal. But he would talk about how every single year he would lose a close friend or colleague in the industry. And he said, looking back over a 35-year career, whether it was as an astronaut with NASA, or as a fighter pilot, or just doing different flight schools, that there was always one person per year on average that they would lose. And that you never desensitize to that. It's heartbreaking every time. Do you notice in the industry, in transportation and logistics and trucking, that in terms of it can be a very dangerous profession, especially when you mentioned 24-hour shifts and people burning out and being fatigued. Do you notice that it can be very dangerous at times? It can be very, very dangerous. It's come a long way too, like just with like the new regulations and stuff coming in compared to what it was even 10 years ago. It's definitely improved, but like I don't think some people realize, like when something as simple as cutting in front of a semi with a full load of anything on, and you're coming up to a light and you're cutting in front of them, they don't have the same stopping power and can't stop on a dime. You know what I mean? So it's pretty crazy. It is a dangerous industry for sure, and you always have to have your head on a swivel, because you don't know what's going to come at you and
whatnot, and a lot of hazard awareness and stuff like that is really important in the industry.
Yeah.
But it's the safety and the regulations are coming out are so good because we're getting into e-logs and stuff like that, and like within our company, like we have the resources that we don't even have to push people or anything, right? We stick right around, like I would say, right around 12-hour days now, and sometimes you'll push it a little longer, but it's changing for sure and whatnot.
Yeah. So safety aside, when you got your class 1, was that 2018?
Yeah, it would have been 18.
And so is it a lot more strict or a lot more hard to get it now? Because I've heard there are new regulations that in order to get the class 1, it's a little bit more difficult.
Much harder, yeah. I remember when I got my class 1, I went in at the same time as my brother-in-law. He got his in like 30 days. Wrote his L, went and practiced for a bit, went in and wrote his class 1 test. It took me a little longer, but I was really nervous and had a lot of like learning to do, you know what I mean? But yeah, like now you have to go through a MELT program, and I don't know the full details on the MELT program, but I know it's a lot more pricey and a lot more difficult to actually get it, which is all good as well, right? And actually, like
Absolutely.
In all honesty, I think getting your class 1 should borderline be on level with a trade, because you get these people, they go out, especially before you go out, you get your class 1, they want to get paid $40-45 an hour because they have the class 1 now. And then they'll jump from company to company because anybody's willing to pay you top dollar because there's such a shortage for drivers that they can jump for a couple bucks an hour here and there, and they can get paid top dollar right off the bat. But it should be more like a trade and more of a thing that you earn, because you even in 2 years of driving, you don't have the experience, you know what I mean? So like I would say someone you're looking at 20 years of experience before you're like can say you have experience almost, right? Or at least 10 for sure. Like it's a huge learning curve, and there's different things that get thrown at you every single day when you're out there.
Yeah. Well, I think anyone looking for experience before they even decide if they want to take their class 1 is just to go to your social media channels, because you've done such a great job of documenting your experiences and your adventures, life on the road. You have the cutest dog. What's your dog's name?
Kennedy.
Kennedy? Yeah. And your dog comes everywhere with you. I think we have a picture of your dog.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you get to witness. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And you get to witness so many different areas of this gorgeous province of ours in British Columbia, that some of these areas you just know that not a lot of people have been to. And some of these sunrises and sunsets, what's it been like for you just to be able to witness all these various Canadian landscapes?
It's incredible. I can't even put it into words, but an experience that like really took me, like dropped my like jaw, was I was going down the bush road and there was a crow like flying right beside my window, and I rolled down my window this much and he was like maybe this far away from my window, and he just flew beside me. He's probably looking for food, but it was just such a cool experience that I don't think how many people get to experience that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely love crows. Just a side note, like they're such their intelligence level is so incredibly high, which is why they're so prevalent. But what an experience, just hanging out, rolling down your window, and it's just parallel.
And it was almost like borderline creepy, because is he gonna come in here? Like what's his plan here?
Kennedy's just like, what is going on? What is that thing?
Yeah.
Have you had any crazy experiences that stick out while you've been in the truck outside of that, in terms of other wildlife or just something bizarre that you've seen from your vehicle?
Wildlife is a huge thing. Like there's so many times where you're just driving and I've had a moose like trotting right in front of my truck, so that's kind of cool. And different things happen. Like one of my most memorable experiences when I was training with my dad, he was fully loaded and he was going around a corner on the bush road and he slipped, and I was in the passenger seat. I grabbed on. I was like, oh my goodness, like I was freaking out, and the whole entire login truck drifted around this corner, and as calm as could be, he just looks at me, he goes, guess I'm going a little too fast, better slow down. And I was just, in my mind, I was just like, I want to be able to do that. And then it happened to me, and I was like, I don't ever want to do that again. That's the scariest thing ever. But that just, when you get ahead of yourself, or if you're rushing, or like I was driving too fast too, but the reason I was driving too fast is because there was a guy behind me and I didn't want him to catch me because I'm competitive. It was a good learning lesson because nothing happened and I was able to save it, and I was able to do the same thing my dad did. But it was a humbling experience, because it's like, you need to respect what you're driving here. You know what I mean? Like, throw your ego out the window and drive safely and slow down, and like, you know what I mean? And after that, it was like little experiences like that can be catastrophic. And when they're not catastrophic, you learn so much from them. Yeah. And then it's a very humbling experience when something like that happens to you and you're okay. And then after, I was like kind of celebrating in my seat. I was like, yeah. I was like, that can't happen again.
That could have gone either way.
It could have gone either way. Luck.
Yeah.
Right? So
when you talk to, because you must have a lot of people that reach out to you, male and female, younger people especially, that are interested in getting into the industry or might just want to hear about your experiences. Actually, Selin, our executive producer in the studio, he's going to bring his friend Brooklyn to the podcast, and she's in her early 20s, and if somebody like that reached out to you just asking like, what steps can I take, or how has your experience being in a male-dominated industry, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I think the first thing I would say is jump in a truck, whether it be with me or like, we can usually set it up with people that, especially because we are really innovative at bringing new people in the industry, we set it up so they can go for a job shadow and jump out there and sit in the passenger seat with somebody and drive down the mountains or whatever, you know what I mean? So you can really experience it and see if you can sit that long and see if you're capable of doing it, or maybe it's a couple shifts, so it's just like kind of job shadowing in a sense, and that'll give you a really good understanding on if something you could do.
Yeah.
That's my first step, I would say, and then just figuring out from there. And I think getting a mentor that can really take you under the wing, because I would say trucking in general, but getting into the logging industry is more difficult than just getting hauling on the highways, because there's so much more that you have to that you go through, right? And different challenges on those roads and whatnot.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I like how you pointed out that see how long somebody can be sedentary for, because that might even be an issue that people don't even anticipate, but you're going to be sedentary for quite some time. How have you dealt with that? Because you're an athlete. You're somebody who respects and really thrives on body movement. And we're going to talk about some of your sports history in a bit here. Has that ever been an issue for you, where you find yourself sedentary for too long and your mind starts playing games on you? And
you have a lot of time to think, for sure.
Yeah.
It is a challenge for sure. I think when you stop and making sure you're doing your stops and walking around or doing a little jog around your truck a few times is very helpful. And listening to podcasts and educating yourself, like, you can learn a crap ton of stuff.
You must go through so many audiobooks and podcasts.
Yeah, even now, like being in the office, I listen to audiobooks quite a bit and whatnot. But that passes the time for sure. And I think sitting for that long is hard on the body, it's hard on the mind, but as long as you, I guess, outside of work, even though you're tired after work, as long as you prioritize working out and moving your body, then you can be pretty good with it.
Yeah. After a long 12-hour shift, it'd be way too easy just to want to go home, but
eat and go to sleep.
Yeah. And so you mentioned like you actually stop the vehicle and like run around and do some squats just to get some blood flowing. Yeah,
I would even if I was. Typically I'd go early, so I'd have a little bit of time to waste before I was under the loader, and I'd do little workouts, jump squats, lunges, whatever, push-ups, do a little jog, take the dog for a walk. Yeah.
That's nice. So you talked about mentorship, somebody that might be getting into the industry, like find a mentor. What kind of mentorship have you had? I know you must have received a lot of mentorship from your dad, from your uncle. Can you think about some other mentors that played an instrumental role in your development and where you are today? Yep.
So we had a couple drivers in our company that spent quite a bit of time with me too, learning. And I think that's what made me so successful is I had my dad who I drive with, I had my brother, I had a couple of our coworkers. And so I got bits of information from each one, and I would take what worked best for me and made me a well-rounded driver, and I wasn't just going off of one person's opinion. I got a lot of different experience. And then I guess I was in the truck with someone for about, I think it was almost 9 months that I was training for.
Great way to build the confidence.
Definitely. Yeah.
And like these trucks that how many wheels in total? Is there over 25 then? Or?
Typically 18 to 32, anywhere.
Wow.
Anywhere from there, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then is that 7-axle then? Or?
So we have anywhere from 7-axle to 9 axles now. 9 axles are kind of a new thing within the last, I think, couple years it's been.
Wow.
Yeah, and so those are some pretty big loads coming out of there.
So I have to ask, do you get to a job site where you're out in the bush and then you get out of your vehicle and there might be some other people there and they just look over and they're like, who is this?
Yeah, it's happened a couple times.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
do you just get hit on all the time, or all of a sudden this guy's like, wow.
I don't think I get hit on. Like, I think maybe the way I present myself, in a sense, like, I have to say, working in a male-dominated industry, I've had very, very, very few problems, but no one's ever really been inappropriate. A couple people have said I belong in the kitchen, but that's about it.
Really?
Yeah, one guy when I first started was saying, like, just going off about females don't belong in the industry and stuff. And I get that on my social media too sometimes, but I've learned the hard way. I just don't retaliate to them, because I've had like, recently on my social media, I've had somebody threaten me. So I'm just like,
Wow.
yeah, it's not
For
worth
being in the industry?
Well, he was saying, you belong in the kitchen, so I kind of got a little bit mouthy back.
It's hard to
stand up
ignore
for
some
myself.
those comment feeds can be the most negative place in the world.
And then I was like,
too.
you know what? My page has been overall very positive and influential, so I can't be getting into that stuff. And then there's been times, like, this is a funny story. I don't know if he knew I was a girl or not, but he cut me off at Brookside going up to Vanderhoof, and so I put on my air horn and held it down for a really long time, and he threw a sandwich out the window at me. I was like, it was pretty funny, because I was like, well, you just lost your lunch. I was just like,
joke's on you, buddy.
I was pretty mad at the time, though, and I was just like, but then I've calmed down and, like, don't retaliate to things like that. And I think overall, being a female in a male-dominated industry, I've had so much respect and people supporting me, and if I'm broke down, they'll stop and help me, or something happens, you know what I mean? And it probably helps that my dad and brother are in the industry and they're pretty well known, and my uncle, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I have a lot of protection and whatnot, so I think it's overall pretty good, and I don't know, like, everyone's pretty good.
First of all, I'm still laughing at somebody threw their sandwich at you.
It's pretty funny.
Not a lot of people on this planet can say that they've had a sandwich thrown at them on the road. But one trick that I learned from a young age, because everyone gets road rage.
Yeah.
You get cut off and it just, like, it infuriates you. It just lights something inside of you. It's human nature.
Wakens the monster.
it does. And you must witness a lot of that being on the road so often. And one thing that I learned at a very young age, I think I was 25, somebody said to me, whenever you're cut off in traffic, imagine that it was your grandma who accidentally cut you off.
Yeah.
And so every time I'm ever cut off, or I see somebody do something stupid on the road, I just immediately picture my grandma, and she did it accidentally.
Yeah.
And then, like, rage just dissipates.
Yeah, that's
it's
a
a
good
nice
tactic.
little trick. Yeah. I saw a post from you, I think it was last week, maybe a bit longer. You have this beautiful new rig, purple.
Yeah.
And this thing is gorgeous. I don't know,
Thank you.
Did you name it?
Yeah, I'm going to name it Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that is...
The truck is Beauty and I'm the Beast, and so is the dog. Yeah, I love it.
And so part of the post, it might have been a reel, but you said that you sold your house to buy this truck.
Yes, so long story short, I wasn't actually living in my house. I was renting an apartment, and it was a rental property kind of thing. And it has been my dream to have a purple W9. Like, even when I was driving before in my trucks, I'd be driving down the road and I'd be envisioning myself in this truck, this exact truck.
Wow, so where did you get it? Were you able to get it in Northern BC, or did
Yep. So our sales guy at Kenworth, he's awesome. Jeff, he helped us pick out all our trucks and get them up here. We actually I ordered mine in March, and we ordered them as a fleet, because when we order them as a fleet, we get a little bit of a better deal. And so altogether, I think there was 14 trucks ordered, and that was one of them.
Wow.
And they just started coming in.
You must take so much pride just knowing that this is yours and that you worked hard to get it.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, are you nervous at all? Just be like, oh, I don't want any.
I don't want to drive it. I don't want it to go on the bush roads. I don't want to get it dirty.
Yeah, well, it stands out.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful ride.
I'd like to go to truck shows.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. How does it feel knowing various people in northern British Columbia? And one person I want to bring up is Arlene from Diamond, because that is somebody who really inspires me as well. I also feel like there's some similarities between you and Arlene, just because she's such a go-getter, and she's doing some amazing things entrepreneurially. Is there other people like that in this community that you see what they're doing, you're saying that is motivation for me?
I'm glad you actually brought her up, because she was a huge movement in my life.
Oh, nice.
There was a temporary time where I quit Mala for my dad, and I went and worked for Arlene. My brother actually works for one of her businesses, Diamond Mechanical.
Mark, yeah, great guy.
So you met him too.
Yeah.
And so I was working for Lodgewood for Arlene for a while, and she built confidence in me that I never even knew I had. And she inspired me, and yes, she's like such a boss lady, and she's so inspiring because she's goals. She really has goals, and she had a huge movement in even getting a truck. I remember when I told her I want to own a truck, she's like, go down to Freightliner right now and go get financing. What are you waiting for? Go talk to Tom. she just gave me that push and that boost of confidence, like, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's definitely a big mover in my life and a very inspiring woman, and definitely goals.
Yeah, personification of inspiration. We were down there at her shop, and you could just tell there was probably about 15 different people, mechanics, because they're doing mechanical, refrigeration, and Lodgewood, and there's about 15 people at her location that day, and you could tell they all had respect for her. Like, and it wasn't like she was trying to be their boss. She was speaking like they're on the same team with the same goals, and they're working towards these goals together.
Totally.
And like you said with leadership, like real leaders, to me, they're not looking to be like in leadership positions or where they have to show leadership. They're looking to build leaders. They're looking to use their leadership to create leaders within their team.
Yeah.
And Arlene fits that perfectly.
She does, yeah.
Another person is Dan O'Brien, one of her friends, and I was able to meet Dan last year, and I think the first time we met him and his general manager, Dardo, we sat in his boardroom for 3 hours, and we're going to talk about some marketing work that their company required, and we didn't even get to marketing. We were just talking about
just
life
easy
stories.
Conversation.
And just to hear like a gentleman that came from nothing and built themselves up, like that is to me when you can create something out of nothing, and anybody can do that. Anybody can create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
You just have to find out exactly where your passions are. And there's this young entrepreneur, her name is Danny. She's in Prince George. She's the owner of North Soul Studios. And she was talking about passion, and this is what really interested me, at how like it's easy to say follow your passion or find your passion, but it's actually a difficult progress to know what you're going to be passionate about, right?
Totally.
And so she was saying like find things you're curious about and pursue those, and then from one of those things that you're curious about, you're going to be able to find something that passion overtakes that, and then it's what you think about and strive towards every day. I really like that mindset from her.
That is cool. I think, there's something that sticks out too. Another one is John Brink, his method, work ethic, passion, and attitude.
Yeah.
Those are definitely keys to success. Like, when you have to have the right attitude and the right mindset, right, to be able to actually do something. Yeah. Your mind can be the biggest thing that holds you back, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mindset is everything, because we can be our own worst critic, and we're usually like the number one person in your life that's going to try to convince you not to do something is yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You can think of all the different reasons why it's not a good idea, why the timing isn't right. It's, perilous by analysis, where you just hold yourself back. But that's where failure is such a good thing. Like people need to stop being so afraid of failure, because the most successful people I know have failed their way to success. There's been some major speed bumps along the way, and not giving up in situations where most people would is such a key attribute to success as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think fear holds a lot of people back, actually, hey?
Yeah.
Definitely, if you're afraid to take the leap and go, then, you'll stay in your comfort zone. Yeah, the comfort zone is a dangerous place to be.
Very overrated place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
So you played a lot of sports growing up, and I didn't know this until today.
Oh,
actually,
really?
That you played. Well, I knew that you played soccer.
Yeah.
And you're quite damn good too. You ended up going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So what age were you when you guys went to Hawaii?
Grade 12.
Grade 12. And so was that through the PGYSA?
PGSS.
PGSS?
So it was our high school team, and every 5 years, I don't know if they still do it, but they would go and compete in Hawaii. And those Hawaiian teams are really good. Really good.
Training year round, right? With no snow.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, as far as like talent goes, I don't know if I had the same amount of talent that some of the other girls that had been playing all their life, because I didn't play very long. I played when I was a kid, and I was allergic to pollen, so I never, I wasn't able to actually play outdoors. So then I didn't actually necessarily have as much talent honestly, the reason I got on that team was my work ethic.
Yeah.
And that just ties back into work. To get places, you need to have a strong work ethic. You need to be willing to grind and do what others aren't willing to do to be able to get places that other people aren't going to be, right?
What's the old quote? Hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, totally.
And so grade 12, was it Oahu that you went? Or what island were you?
Honolulu.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Were you playing in Aloha Stadium, like the massive stadium?
No, we were outdoors on the fields.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
My oldest sister lives in Honolulu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she moved there.
Oh, cool.
She did her undergrad in Victoria at UVic, and then got a scholarship to do her master's in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
And she always wanted to come back to British Columbia. She's like, oh, I want to come back to BC. That's where family is.
Yeah.
And then she had this job offer, and it was in Honolulu. And so she's like, oh, well, maybe go there for a year and then make it back to BC after that. That was in 2004.
Never
so
returned.
17 years ago. Yeah, she's got 3 beautiful kids there now, and she was just sending me pictures yesterday of them playing soccer.
Really?
And, yeah.
Interesting. So is that a vacation spot for you?
Yeah. Well, pre-pandemic, we
Yeah.
were trying to go there as often as we could because
Cool.
accommodation is always the most expensive thing.
Yeah.
When you're there, and when you get it for free, it's like,
Why
well,
not?
more money for surfing lessons.
Yeah, totally. That's cool.
Another sport that you played growing up, and this might have been into your 20s as well, and I sent my buddy, actually a good buddy of Selin and me, Rich Abney. I sent him a message this morning, and I was like, thank you for the content during this interview with Ashley later on, because I had no idea she played lacrosse.
Oh, that's so funny.
And you did a feature video on you.
Yeah.
So we're going to bring that video up and watch it, because
Oh, God. I have to watch myself.
you were just a young pup at the time. And
Yeah.
what age did you start playing lacrosse?
Grade 8.
Grade 8?
My dad said, I'll give you $100 if you join lacrosse. And I was like, yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah, and I joined the female team, and I scored a goal every game, and I'm very competitive, and I'm just naturally, and it probably is my worst attribute, is how competitive I am when it comes to this stuff. So if I try something and I'm not good and can't become the best at it, my attitude is, this is where attitude comes in. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do it. I've worked on it since becoming more mature and becoming an adult. But when I was younger, if I started something and I wasn't good, my dad put me in hockey too, and I couldn't skate. And I was like, I would not even go to a practice. But yeah, so yeah, my dad gave me $100 to join, and I did, and I ended up loving it. And then I ended up playing up until, oh gosh, probably I was 25, I think it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. I always thought that lacrosse was Canada's national sport, but it's actually Canada's national summer sport.
Yeah.
And then hockey is the national winter sport.
Yeah.
And lacrosse has been on my mind a lot in the last week, because there's a local athlete that we provided some sponsorship for last Thursday. His name's Cole, phenomenal athlete, great guy. His dad was born in Scotland. He's from Prince George. And so with his dad being born in Scotland, he was able to qualify for the Scottish national team and play for them. Yeah, so he got a lacrosse scholarship in Alabama, and he's been playing for Team Scotland, so he's going over there and playing seasons in box lacrosse, and he was training out of Dundee, which is where my parents are from.
Oh, really?
Really cool guy, really inspirational. You guys should connect. Just
That's cool.
A phenomenal guy. And that's the thing about Prince George is, we're such a 4-season town that we have all these amazing athletes in both winter sports and summer sports. I mean, Marietta O'Dine, just qualifies for the Olympics yesterday.
The snowboarder.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I was like, oh, that's
incredible.
So cool.
Emily Dixon, there's an athlete, a biathlete, who just qualified for the games as well. And Sarah Boutry, another amazing local product, who's I think training out of Canmore, Alberta now. She's on the 2022 Beijing Olympic team. So
that's cool.
Go PG City.
A lot of talent that comes out of here.
Yeah, let's watch this video.
Lacrosse can be a ruthless game with body checking, cross checks, slashes, and more. Some might say that makes it a man's game, but not according to Ashley Sidhu. She suits up for the Cowboy Ranch Regional Security Stylers of the PG Senior Lacrosse League.
Number 18 on the Cowboy Ranch Regional Security Stylers is a little different than the rest of the team. Ashley Sidhu grew up watching her brothers play and got her first taste of lacrosse at a girls' practice 6 years ago.
I went out and tried, and I loved it. And I was scoring goals every single game on the girls' team, so it made me want to go for the boys to try to get better.
Women's lacrosse this season, but the numbers weren't there. giving her no other option but to suit up in the senior men's league.
We're 2 players short for a junior A girls team, and we're short. I wasn't actually going to play this year, and then my team talked me into it.
What she lacks in size, she makes up for with her effort and tenacity.
I work hard, I try my hardest all the time, no matter what. Sometimes I get frustrated, but I pull through, and I don't know. Hard work is what gets me where I am today.
Her Stylers teammates see her as one of the guys and say it's easy to forget she's a 21-year-old woman.
She doesn't shy away from it. She chose to play. She embraces it. She goes out there playing with the guys. She's not afraid to get hit. She's great. She sets picks. She does her job phenomenal.
Lacrosse is known for its intensity and physical nature. Though she hears the odd remark on the floor, Sidhu has her own unique way of dealing with it.
It's tough because sometimes even guys will be like, oh, girls shouldn't be playing out here and stuff like that. But I just shrug it off. Just try my hardest and hopefully I knock them over, which it doesn't always happen, but I try.
Sidhu's teammates say she's improving with each and every game. And that's a good thing, because she certainly has no plans of slowing down.
I'll probably play for the rest of my life until I can't anymore.
Awesome.
I don't play anymore.
Shout out.
8 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, shout out to the 21-year-old Ashley Sidhu for providing us with this content, and Rich Abney as well.
That's
I think we have to
funny.
pay him like $12 in royalties to play this. So.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you watch this video, and you're so driven back then, like you are today. Just your competitiveness and wanting to break down barriers. And that trickled into your career and other areas of your life.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. I mean, what is next for you? Because I feel like you've always had big goals.
Yeah.
And what do you have on the radar, whether it's a short-term, medium-term, long-term goal? Do you have some things cooking in the kitchen?
Yeah, I think really right now my focus for immediate is to work on the new company and really build it and dial it in and whatnot. And probably as far as Mala Trucking goes, we'll probably just work on getting our managers in place, which we have a business manager now, so we've come a far ways and whatnot. And then I think work on the mechanical company. And I really, my biggest goal is probably to branch out into, I guess, inspiring more people in male-dominated industries, especially females. I applied for through BC CWIT, I think it is, and it's like females in trades. And I applied for this leadership course, and I didn't even think I was going to get into it because I'm like, I don't have a trade. But I applied to it as in I hire people that are qualified tradespeople, and I'm always looking, and I'm trying to find women to come into our industry. So I applied for it as that, and I ended up getting into it. So
Nice.
I'm hoping to, more get into I guess more of a mentorship role and guiding people, women in particular, that are intimidated to get into these industries, because it is intimidating. I never thought at that age I'd be doing what I'm doing now, right? So yeah, I think more like go that route and be able to be a bigger part of the community.
Yeah.
I think it's my biggest goal.
And you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you in terms of labor shortages with your current role, just because it's not just your industry, but all industries are facing massive labor shortages.
Oh yeah,
right?
we're always looking for mechanics and whatnot, so there's definitely some pressure there to find good qualified people, and then finding people that fit in and have the right attitude, right?
Yeah.
Is super important.
I don't know if this is kind of an odd question, but has drugs and alcohol been a problem in the industry, in transportation? Have you noticed that being a problem or an issue?
I don't know. Like within our company, we have no issues with it at all. Like I have to say, we have a really good crew, and we don't even people don't even really call in sick or anything, right? So, but I would say it is out there. Like it is out there, and I think I've heard about it and whatnot. I have never really been directly involved in it, and we haven't really had any problems or issues with on our side of things, at least.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking is we're at this local nonprofit in town. It's called AWAC. It's Advocating for Women and Community, and they have a head office and a shelter on George Street, but also one on 3rd Avenue. And so we met with one of their executive directors, really good guy, and he was telling us how they have this event, Coldest Night of the Year fundraiser, coming up in February. And he was telling us, we're talking to some individuals who were in recovery, and there's one in 7 months, one in a year, and then one that just hit their 2-year anniversary. And they're talking about how just as short of a period of 2 years ago, where somebody that might start using drugs or get addicted to drugs, to the time where like their drug it might lead to an overdose or death was so much longer than how powerful the drugs are today. So it's like such a shorter period for when somebody starts using and when there's an overdose.
Really?
And it was so interesting hearing that. Like they said, just even a couple years ago, it used to just be this long period of time where an overdose could happen, but the drugs are getting stronger and stronger by the day. And we see it in the streets of Prince George and other Canadian communities. It's a global pandemic where the opioid crisis and just the drug crisis in general is really taking grip in communities, and it's so sad. And so it was just an interest in hearing him say how this, like, from start to overdose, that period is just shrinking by the day.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very tragic conversation.
Scary.
Yeah, very scary. So I was just kind of curious if it affects your industry or not. Another thing I want to talk about is when this pandemic first arrived, this global pandemic in March of 2020, was it rewarding for you being in the login and transportation logistics industry to see so many of your fellow colleagues, your work colleagues, being recognized for the great work they do, being recognized for essential services and being praised, where they were highlighted along with healthcare workers as these essential workers that were getting people their goods and their products to their door, to the shelves of grocery stores?
Yeah, totally. It was quite nice to see, because sometimes, like I said in the beginning, like sometimes the truckers out there, they don't get recognized for what they're doing and how strenuous their job actually is and what they're out there accomplishing. So it was cool. It was really nice to see.
Yeah. And then you're, as a trucker, if you're in transportation, you're dealing with so many different elements of wildlife and weather and fatigue, and like look at what British Columbia has been through in the last year in terms of the wildfires of last summer, the flooding of this past fall, and even the last couple of weeks, how you've seen these fluctuating temperatures, and now we have these mandates that are coming down by the government saying that all truckers have to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
So is that to get into the United States or to come back into Canada?
From what I know, yes. Like I believe it's for that border crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a convoy on its way to Ottawa to protest right now.
Yeah, I seen that. Yeah.
I saw the GoFundMe for that, and they're at like almost $700,000 or something in terms of people just donating to support that convoy.
Yeah. I think it just goes to show how important the trucks on our roads are, right?
Yeah.
And how much they are really needed, right? In the industry,
So what drives you the most in terms of getting out of bed in the morning? Because I'm sure you're probably waking up at 3 a.m. on some days, or 3:30 a.m. Like, what gets you out of the bed in the morning and just makes you want to go out there and give it your best?
Well, I work in the office now, so I get to sleep until like 8. But overall, what drives me is being able to essentially build an empire with my family. And myself, my dad, my brother, we're all kind of on the same page, and we're all working to a common goal. And it's pretty cool to see how a family can work so closely together, and we all get along great. I don't want to jinx us here. But actually, to tie back to lacrosse, so that team, that video, there was myself, Josh, one of my older brothers, Dustin, my oldest brother, he played for a little bit, my younger brother Mark, and my dad all played on that team.
Wow.
So the team dynamic now it's playing into business, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see. But yeah, I think working with the family and building our dreams together and all being on the same page and mending and working together, and that's probably the coolest part and the biggest driver for sure.
Yeah. See, these are similar characteristics that you're displaying right now that we've seen in so many of our guests that have been on this podcast. And we had the honor of being able to interview Rick Hansen, and Selen and Andrew were in the studio. We were over at Blake Productions, and just hearing this individual, this legend, talk about his Man in Motion World Tour in the 80s and everything that went into that. It's so interesting because they had little fanfare when they started the tour. Like Rick Hansen, his goal was to wheel across the world and raise awareness and money for spinal cord research. And so they're going to do it in this little like minivan camper.
Cool.
And so what they did to prepare for it was his support crew, they came into and moved into Rick's little apartment in Vancouver, and they all lived there for a few months together in this cramped little apartment just to see if they wouldn't kill each other.
Wow, hey.
Yeah, and
It's a good test.
and that's, yeah, it's a great test. But the great thing about podcasting is it forces you to research all these fascinating Canadians like yourself, and to educate yourself in their areas.
Yeah.
And with Rick Hansen, it was the best part of that podcast came in the fact that we started learning and educating ourselves in his story again, and we were able to share his story again, because it's up there with other legends like Terry Fox.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that when Terry Fox was getting ready to start his actual Marathon of Hope, his cross country St. John's, Newfoundland to BC run, that Rick Hansen and him were on the same wheelchair basketball team.
Really?
Yeah, they're friends in Vancouver, and they actually came up to Prince George in 1979, September 1979.
Wow.
They came up to Prince George for a race which was called the Prince George to Boston Marathon. And it was organized by Dick Von Eugene, who was a guest on this podcast as well.
Cool.
He's in his 90s now, and a fascinating story. He used to hide Jewish people with his family during World War II in Holland. Yeah. And so they came up to this race in September, and Terry Fox was supposed to do the half version of the race, the half distance, but he was so motivated by the crowd in Prince George and the fact that he was feeling strong, he did the full race. He finished last, but he had a standing ovation by the time he was done. The person who came in first in that race came and gave him his medal, and it was that race, PG to Boston Marathon in Prince George, that gave Terry Fox the motivation to do the Marathon of Hope the following year.
Wow.
And Rick Hansen came up to Prince George with him at that race.
Wild,
hey?
Yeah. Such a small world.
Yeah, yeah. So Daryl Fox, Terry Fox's youngest brother, is somebody who I keep in touch with. We follow each other on Strava, and we send each other notes every now and then. And he's equally as motivated. And he came up to Prince George when Tracy and the Exploration Place had the exhibit on Terry Fox, and they had his actual Ford 1975 Ford minivan that they used for the Marathon of Hope. It was up at UMBC on display.
Cool.
Very cool time. And the reason why I'm talking about Terry Fox a lot is because we always ask our podcast guests to name a Canadian who inspires them, and they could be dead or alive, but if you could have a conversation with any Canadian, somebody who really motivates you, somebody who's been a role model in your life, who would it be? And the reason why I brought up Terry Fox before is because that's our most common answer. So you're not allowed to say Terry Fox.
Oh, no.
And it could be anyone. It could be a musician. It could be an athlete. It could be a business titan. It could be absolutely anybody. Who would come to mind? Who did you want to have that conversation with?
So, can I say two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson and Tony Robbins.
Ooh.
I've listened to a lot of their speeches and their I've watched Tony Robbins. I recommend everybody to watch it on Netflix. It's I'm Not Your Guru. Such a good show, and that's what actually introduced me to Tony Robbins or whatever it is. So him and Jordan Peterson are like very influential people to me, and they've helped me think different, and like, you know, they're very, very inspiring people. I don't know if you've listened to any of the stuff they say or whatnot. Jordan Peterson in particular, he's so articulate, and the way he talks is just, it's so mesmerizing to me. I love listening to him speak.
Yeah.
And then Tony, he's just very inspirational and motivational and whatnot.
Those are fantastic answers. With Jordan Peterson, who is in a bit of hot water right now with leaving his university position in Toronto, I feel like I'll listen to one of his speeches or one of his podcast episodes, and sometimes like even if you listen to it again a couple more times, like you gain something from it each time. It's hard to conceptualize like how somebody can be that intelligent.
Yeah.
And it just seems so seamless, right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
he's from Northern Alberta, which is
really?
very cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like every time you re-listen to one of his stuff, you can pick up more information from it because he's so like, he gets so in depth about things and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he's gained massive following online, and that's where you have to. We kind of talked about social media before, how some of those comment feeds can really manifest the negative side of social media.
What you don't want, yeah.
But social media is like anything in life. It's how you look at it and how you utilize it.
Yeah.
If you log into your Facebook page or your timeline and you think to yourself like, oh, this is a dark place and social media sucks, and that's probably what you're going to find.
Yeah.
That's probably the content that you're going to be attracted to. But if you go into social media, open up one of your channels and just think that you can connect with people and you can be inspired and you can provide inspiration, then that's what you're going to discover.
Yeah.
It's all about mindset, which we talked about
Yeah.
before as well. And so like the social media giving people like brilliant minds like Jordan Peterson the ability to share their knowledge with others.
Yeah.
And I like when you have professors, like actual like professors that are providing uplifting motivational content for other people when all of a sudden they get to celebrity status. I think that's wonderful because those are the kind of people that should be celebrities.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ones that are helping others.
Yeah.
And then it's really that's a great answer, and I'm very enthusiastic about that answer.
Thanks.
So before we end this podcast episode, we just had one more video that we wanted to bring up because this is a video that we started the episode with when we talked about our collaboration, and when we had Brady with us and he followed along with one of your rides. And he brought out his drone. Look at that for northern British Columbia winter scenery. We're about was this out towards Vanderhoof, out west?
Yeah,
or?
Fort
Okay.
St. James.
Yeah, look at that. Like these are the kind of landscapes people see and they think paradise. But we desensitize to them sometimes, right? You have to almost remind yourself like, yeah, we're lucky to have this kind of scenery.
Yeah, you get comfortable. Also known as the Mala Girl, and I drive a logging truck based out of Prince George. I started driving, I've actually just hit my 1 year. I got my class 1 last November. I started training the February before with my dad, brother, and a couple other workers that work at Mala Trucking. I got into it because I quit my job and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And my dad just said, well, you should go get your class 1. It's a good fallback plan. And just in case you never have work or whatever. And then I ended up really loving it. The best part about my job is the fact that I get to work with my family. We're a pretty close-knit family, and I think it's the coolest thing ever to be able to work alongside my brother and my dad. Well, my brothers and my dad. I hope to eventually have my own trucking company, or maybe just like a spur off of what Mala Trucking already is. I'm super proud of our family name. I'm the only girl that's actually on my dad's side. I'm the only girl. There's no other nieces. They're all nephews. They all have boys. So I would love to be able to, one, make my ancestors super proud, and two, give future generations someone to look up to and something to kind of work towards. So being one of the few female truckers, it's not bad. Like, for the most part, I have a lot of support from everybody. Family, friends, other truckers. I started my Instagram page a few months back. I always wanted to do an Instagram page based on trucking, but I was like a little bit nervous because you're kind of like putting yourself out there. And like previously, before my Mala Girl page, I never really even took pictures of my face or like selfies or anything like that. I always felt really awkward in front of not in front of a camera, but like just like putting myself out there. So I actually went to a psychic, and she brought up, I didn't say anything about it, she brought up, she said, you're thinking about doing something on social media and you should do it because it's really going to take off. And so that's kind of what started it. I got my name because when I started trucking, people didn't really know my name. They just said, oh, hey, are you the Mala Girl? So that's where it came from. And it kind of stuck.
ancestors proud. How many people say that? How many people even think of their ancestors in terms of being motivated to make them proud?
Yeah, that's crazy. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you said that. And I think that anybody watching this, here's some advice from the Mala Girl, is do something that would make your ancestors proud.
Totally. Yeah.
Ashley, thank you so much for being a guest on Crazy Damn Canadians. We're podcast number 32. It wouldn't be possible without that man right there selling Alpay and his generosity and his belief in us. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
How do people follow you online and social media?
I go by the Mala Girl on all my social media platforms.
Perfect. So the Mala Girl, M-A-L-L-A.
Yeah.
All right, the Mala Girl. Ashley, you rock.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the great work.
Cool.
Andrew, hit the studio 720.